Conversation is going round. People talking about the girl who's come to town. Fresh as a summer breeze, she'll take you by surprise.
Good morning and welcome to another fabulous episode of Freshwaves here on Whistle FM. We are in for a great morning. Thank you for joining us. Jason, thanks for all your help behind the board there, and Ivan Harris for all that he does for us here at the studio.
My
Jay,
pleasure.
It's a fabulous Freshwaves kind of day.
It sure is, definitely. And
It
great,
is.
Great to see you.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, great to have you back.
Yeah, I was away visiting a friend in Costa Rica who has bought a new house and starting a new life, and it's really exciting.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, very exciting. Well, I have to do a big shout out to Reeser's Market and Bakery for providing us the fabulous muffins in the studio this morning. And on the 14th, they're having their 14th anniversary on Saturday, March 17th.
Okay, so is it 14th on the 17th?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're listening on Sunday, you missed it.
Right.
Shucks, because
But
it's going to be a
15th.
really good open house. Anyway, that's Reeser's Market and Bakery. They're at 5758 Main Street in Stouffville, and they have fantastic things. Go on in and check it out. The muffins we're having today are Morning Glory.
Oh.
Morning Glory.
Love the sound of that.
I know. Isn't it great?
Yeah.
This is Morning Glory.
It sure is, definitely.
Fresh Waves and Morning Glory. I think they go hand in hand.
They sure do.
All right. Joining us in the studio this morning, we have Minni Sharma and Sonja Curic.
Right.
And we're going to be talking divorce. Oh, it sounds like such an awful subject, but it's really not.
No.
Okay, it can be. But for the most part, I think we've come to an age where sometimes it's actually a good thing. It's better sometimes for kids to be living in a home with someone who's happy than with two people who are fighting all the time. It's better when two people aren't getting along for them to go their separate ways and do their own life thing. So there can be good things about divorce. We're going to try and get those good things in, as well as the fact that we know that often it's not such a great situation. Now, Minni, you are a psychotherapist.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on the show, first of all.
Oh,
we're excited to be here.
Really excited to have you. So a psychotherapist indicates to me a counselor, and then, you know, you get that stereotypical counselor of, oh, and how does that make you feel?
I hate to say that's pretty much what it can be sometimes. Yeah. But since we're talking about divorce today, there's a little bit of a different angle when we talk about relationships and divorce. So the work that I do is similar to what social workers, psychologists, psychotherapists, we do similar work. So yeah, you could just kind of put it in a box and call it counseling.
A box and call it counseling. Yes, but you kind of specialize in divorce.
Yes.
And you also advocate for children.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't work directly with young children. I don't feel like I have the expertise for that in particular, but what I do is work a lot with the parents. So when they're going through a divorce or having issues with their relationship, how to support them to support their children, because I'm not going to be there all the time. So giving them the skills and the tools to be able to do that, especially if they're going through a divorce, and helping them communicate and become the best co-parents possible for their children, right? At the end of the day, it's really about the kids. And as long as they're healthy.
That's an interesting position.
That's usually the first question I get asked, right? We're going through separation or divorce. Are our kids going to be okay? So I usually say, well, if you guys are okay, the kids will be okay. So let's work on what you guys need. And then you can support your children. That's my point of view, though.
That's a good way of looking at it, though. It seems to be a amicable way of looking at it. For lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, you may not be married anymore, but you're always going to have a relationship if you have children.
Yes,
right?
for
You're always going to be parents. So either way, you're going to have to learn how to communicate for the sake of your kids, you know, and for each other, because you think you might be happy after, you know, people say, I don't have to deal with them anymore. I'm getting a divorce. I'm separating, but you're actually going to have to deal with the worst of that person for a long time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you're married to them and then you're divorced to them.
Correct.
You never get away from one of the labels, one or the other.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So why not work on it and make things better for everybody, right? And
Yeah.
communicate better.
You are going to have to be with that person really in a lot of ways for the rest of your life, especially if there's kids involved.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And then we have Sonja. And
Yeah.
did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You did, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are a family and collaborative family lawyer. And I always hear that and think, well, if there could be a collaborative situation, there wouldn't be a divorce. It's sort of like an oxymoron. But does it actually happen that there are people who can work together and...
They do.
Really?
Sometimes on their own. So there'll be lots of times where clients will come to me and say, like, you know, we've sat around the kitchen table. We've come up with what we think, you know, what should happen with the kids, what should happen with our house. But we need to make it legal. We need to dot the I's, cross the T's, and we need to fine tune it. So, you know, we've decided to make decisions about the kids. And then when you kind of delve into it, what are the important decisions? And sometimes we hit some roadblocks there. So one of my jobs is to help them get over those roadblocks. And then there's those people who are like, no, we don't get along. We don't communicate well. We don't. And so, but they see value in putting their kids first. They see value in keeping out of the court process. They see value in trying to. They came into their marriage together, leaving their marriage together. Doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't. But there are people who have really amicable divorces.
Yes, they do. Unicorns do exist sometimes in our business.
Yeah. Or horses.
Yeah.
Zebras, you know, the zebras and the horses thing.
Right, because everybody has a horror story. You can,
right.
You just go
There
to the
are
bank.
so many.
And, you know, when I've been to my son's baseball game and somebody found out I'm a family law lawyer and cornered me and spent like 20 minutes talking about their spouse who was on the other side of the field, you know? So I'm legitimately nervous sometimes telling people I'm a family law lawyer. I'm trying to change it to I'm a peacemaker. I support families and trying to achieve some peace
You want
in their
to
divorce.
breed unicorns.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, why Minni and I are here, is to get the word out that there's, you know, court is not the first option.
No.
Or the only option.
Exactly.
I have heard of cases where people have done the collaborative thing and it has ended up that they've had to go to court and had someone, you know, say, no, this is how it will be, end of story. And yes, sometimes even as a parent, I know I've got 4 kids. There are sometimes when you can really be collaborative and there's other times when you say, okay, my law stands.
Yeah.
That's true. No, it's absolutely true. I guess, the question I'll sometimes ask my clients is, though, these are your children. How do you feel about a stranger making a decision about your children?
Yeah, a stranger who doesn't know you and has no background. I've
Right.
always thought that's really weird. Because if you want to sit down and tell somebody a background, first of all, you're getting it from one side. And, you know, you need a good few hours if you're going to get in an entire lifetime. And then you get the other perspective, and sometimes it's as if the two stories are completely different books.
Oh, it happens all the time. And judges don't have, you know, time to read your whole life history. You get really, 5 minutes in court, sometimes 10 minutes. People think, oh, it's my day in court and I'm going to get what I want. And most of the time, that's not really the case. They're overloaded, right? Our court system. So, why not take control and have some ability to make decisions together and learn how to make decisions together? So when we talk about collaborative, maybe Sanja, you could explain a little bit about what we mean by collaborative divorce, because you're right, there are different options. There's the kitchen table. That often doesn't work as well because they're not familiar with family law, right? The average person isn't.
Isn't Mr. Google or Mrs. Google
Oh gosh, let's
a
not
lawyer?
go there. Well, there's a lot of good information, but you still need independent legal advice, correct, Sanja? Right at these
For a
times,
binding agreement,
Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
so ultimately, even at a kitchen table, it's going to have to be reduced to a contract, a domestic contract, a separation agreement. But yeah, so, is it been witnessed? Is it dated? Do you really understand what you're putting your name to? Right?
That's a good question.
Because the worst thing is, what I might characterize as buyer's remorse,
Right, yeah.
a year from then, and you're like, oh gosh, had I known something, had I known this, had I known that, had I understood this, or I thought I understood it, but now that it's in place, and the reality of it is like, oh my gosh.
Oh, I really didn't want that.
Exactly.
Or I didn't know that I there's a child support table and I should have gotten more, or whatever it is. Knowledge is power. And sometimes, people think they know because Google tells them something, but that's not always the case, right? Because wouldn't you agree that family law can sometimes be gray? Very gray?
it could be absolutely gray. And also, what fits for your family?
Yeah, all families are different.
Every family is different. Every couple is different. Every child is different. So while Google is talking about, this is what normally happens, the number of times where I talk to a client and say, this is the law, this is the legal model, this is what, the guidelines say, this is what the Family Law Act says when it comes to how you divide your pension and your bank accounts and what you do with your house. Does that work for you? And the person goes, no. And then they tell you why, and you sit there and you go, okay. So my job is to say, this is the legal model. Here are some options. You are now the grown-up.
Yes.
You have to live with the consequences of this agreement. The lawyers go away. The judges go away. Family counselors like Minni sometimes, and quite often actually, I'm finding increasingly, continue to work with, the families will continue because, kids are hard to raise. Things come up. But even eventually Minni goes away. Right?
Right.
You as a couple, although separated, still have to live with this.
And you still have to
make it work. And make it work.
Right.
Right? So also, seeing it in black and white, and you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then the reality of putting it into practice, you're like, ooh, this is not really what I thought, or, I've now changed jobs, or I've lost a job, I've repartnered, our child has recently been...
Repartnered. There's a nice word. I didn't even know that one existed. Okay. Repartnered.
Repartnered. Yeah.
But I think if we explain what collaborative the process is, so Sanja and I both sit on the board of your collaborative practice, and we're really big believers of this. But a lot of people don't know that this is an option. They think it's either mediation or court, and there's this wonderful, wonderful option.
And you know what? I think we're going to have that discussion as soon as we get back from our first little break. Jay, take it away for a commercial and station ID. We'll be right back. You're listening to Fresh Waves on Whistle FM. Stay tuned.
Hey everyone, this is Lil J. Join me every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern for The Block Party, a 2-hour journey of the best in the Canadian underground dance music scene, featuring tracks and DJ mixes from Canada's emerging artists, from the disco hits of the 70s to the latest dance floor fillers. No lineups or cover charges, it's your weekly free access to the beats that are packing dance floors in Canada and around the world. The Block Party, Saturday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, right here on 102.9 Whistle FM and online at whistleradio.ca.
And we are back on Fresh Waves. We have Minni Sharma and Sonja Curic in the station today. We are talking about divorce, the nasty subject of divorce. The purpose of this show is actually to educate. And we bring in fresh ideas and fresh concepts. And this one is not fresh. This has been around for quite a while. And we just want to tell people we're not going to wallow in the negativity of the whole situation. The situation happens, it has to be dealt with. People need to know what their options are. If anyone out there knows someone who is struggling with this, doesn't know if they can leave, doesn't have the courage to make that first step, maybe you can refer them to this show. We podcast the show on freshwaves.ca. And you can listen to the podcast, and it will give you the information that you need to proceed. And information as basic as, all right, what is collaborative? Because as I said earlier, it seems like if people could collaborate, they wouldn't be getting divorced. So how does the collaborative thing work, and what is it?
So really what it means is the team effort. So what happens is a couple can come in, or two parents come in. They are considering separation or divorce. They still have to hire a lawyer. What they would do is hire lawyers who are trained in collaborative process. So we all have to be trained and take these courses in order to practice the collaborative process. So it usually consists of both parents. Each of them have their lawyer collaboratively trained. And then we have two, what we call neutral professionals. One is a financial professional, and they often, help sort out all the financial issues, right?
They'll go so far as to help the couple prepare their financial disclosure. So the financial information, because our team needs to understand, what assets do you have? What debts do you have? What incomes are you earning? And what's wonderful with the financial neutral is a lot of times people structure their marriages in different ways. So it could be, understanding the household monthly expenses. Wife's the bill payer. She manages the checkbook. She's the one online. Could be the husband. It doesn't matter. So the person who has the information during the marriage, they share it. They share it with the neutral. So it's not two people working with two lawyers getting sometimes overlapping duplicate information.
And paying overlapping duplicate fees.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
If money is an issue, it always has astounded me that people spend so much money on the legal process of getting a divorce. It's kind of like looking at those big, huge weddings and saying, that was the down payment of your first home. Was it worth it for one day? And you think you're both starting new lives, and separating often involves half of whatever you've been used to. Now take that half and half it in half, because you've just spent half of it on legal fees.
That's right.
What a waste it seems to me. I mean, that's just my opinion, but it does seem like a waste of money.
It's a grunge
Not that
expense.
You guys don't deserve.
No, we hear it. No, to be real, we hear it all the time. I, as a lawyer, hear that constantly. It's a grunge purchase. It's a grunge payment. Mm-hmm. I joke often, I pay the 407 bill happily because I'm not sitting in traffic. You don't pay your family lawyer happily. Right?
No, you don't.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how good of a job your family law lawyer is doing. Nobody wants to be in that position of dealing with the end of their relationship. So a lot of times I've heard it quite often. It's a grunge payment. Yeah. And so we hear that. We understand that. I think, and that's why I really feel so passionately about collaborative, because as one of our colleagues says so often, you are using the skill set when you need it, how you need it, as much as you need it. So it's not, litigation. You could be sitting in the hallway for hours waiting to be heard, and you're paying for your lawyer
to sit
to
there.
wait,
Yeah.
right?
And you're both paying. And what people don't understand is it seems to be coming from the same pot.
Yeah,
right.
There's not an extra magical pot that appears somewhere in the sky.
Exactly.
It's coming from the same pot, whether you're paying one lawyer or two.
Right.
Or sometimes three.
Right. So the financial professional's really helpful in the information gathering. They have the advantage that I as a lawyer don't, in the sense that they can sit down with both. So they can understand the dynamic. Is there power and control issues?
Right.
Somebody holds the purse strings. So oftentimes when I'm working with that financial professional, they're giving me some feedback about that dynamic. And then family professionals like Minni, who are working with the couple, often doing screening for things like power imbalance and domestic violence.
Relationship dynamics, how they communicate. So what usually happens in terms of a collaborative, so we have 4 people that are part of the team, and then we have obviously the 2 clients, right? The mom and the dad. And people often think, oh, more people means more dollars, but that's not the case at all, because you're paying the financially professional, sometimes, 2/3 of the rate, and you're splitting that cost, right, between the two of you. So you're not paying each of your lawyers a couple $100 or $300 an hour to do the same thing.
$300 to $500 an hour from what I've been doing.
To be fair, though, a lot of lawyers do have clerks and law clerks and legal assistants who oftentimes will be working with the clients. So I work with one quite regularly where we've been working a long time. So I'm like, I want you to work with my clerk. She's far more cost effective than I am. And a lot of times people just don't know where to look. Like, oh my gosh, I've never budgeted. Like, these are people educated, earning 6 figures. But when it comes to them sitting down and going, I don't know how much a month I spend on kids' clothing.
Yeah, happens a lot, actually.
I don't know. Or, as I had recently, going through a budget, and my client sat back in shock going, I didn't realize we spent that much. Just in shock and awe, because they've never, this is not the way they lived. I've had other clients, they know down to the nickel. I can't say penny anymore. They know down to the nickel. What money is coming in and out. And so that's really
and how
important.
much things cost, because it's really that's a really interesting way of looking at things. Just coming from a almost third world country that I've been in for the last few weeks, where people know how much a loaf of bread costs. And I was shocked because, you know what? I have no idea how much a loaf of bread costs. It's something that I have to buy, and it just goes on a grocery bill. I know what my weekly grocery cost is. Right. But I have no idea what a loaf of bread costs.
Well, like you said, Brenda, now you have, 2 incomes for one family that was paying for one family. Now that same pool of money is going to be divided in 2, and you have to now support 2 separate families, right? So the financial professional is really good at coming up with creative ways to kind of make it a little bit more fair, and so the kids have a similar lifestyle at each parent's house. And so splitting that cost sometimes is more feasible. And then what I do is I'm also trained in collaborative practice as a family professional, is I usually meet with the parents first and do an intake, and it gives me a really good idea of who they are, what are their fears, what are they afraid of, what are the dynamics. And then we kind of have myself and the lawyers, and if a financial professional is involved, have a little meeting, and I kind of go, here are the dynamics. This is what we're going to kind of expect when we all come together as a team. So I help with the communication, and I actually draft up the parenting plan. So sit down with them and come up with a schedule, holidays. You talked about repartnering. We even put that, in my parenting plan, I even have things about body piercings and tattoos. These are things you don't think about that might actually become an issue as the kids get older, right? One parent might be like, yeah, sure, get a tattoo at 16. I'll sign for it. And the other parent's like, whoa, wait a minute. We didn't talk about this. So we want to make sure that everything is detailed and put out. Obviously, we can't, put everything in, then we don't know what's going to happen, but there's a lot of detail in those parenting plans, and that helps reduce any conflict in the future, right? And that's the point. So they also share that cost as well. So just because you're adding more people to it, it's actually much more economical. And the best part of it is that they have to sign an agreement, a participation agreement, saying that they won't go to court during this process.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. They have to agree to that.
We're missing a person, because you said there were 4. We've got a lawyer.
Each has their own lawyer. You have to have your own lawyer.
Okay,
yes.
You can't use one lawyer for both.
No, my job is to advocate for my client.
Okay. So even in collaborative, you still have 2 lawyers.
But the way I advocate is very different than in other models, like going to court, like mediation, right? So my job is there to, I spend a lot of time working with my client. What are your goals? What are your interests? It's amazing what you hear from a client with a simple question of, where would you like to see yourself 5 years from now? And when a
But
client,
that's an interesting question just in general.
but it is. But it's also, when you have a client who's like, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. That to me says, I need to bring someone like Minni in to help this family, because you can only go so fast as the slowest person.
Right,
So if that person is having a difficult time grieving the end of their marriage, or just so emotionally overwhelmed, how does their spouse or ex-spouse expect them to come and talk about some really hard, important issues? They don't, when the message is, I can't even think about tomorrow.
Wow.
Right? Other times it's like, oh yeah, you know what? I've known about this for the last 5 years. Like, I'm ready to go. I've got my finances together.
Yeah.
I have it already planned out in my head. The child support, the spouse, it's done. Like, why do we even have to do this? I've got the agreement. It's right here. If you'll only listen to me.
Right. Sometimes people aren't ready to hear it.
It's in my experience with almost, I would say most, like 90% of the files I've had, there's always been one partner that just checked out a long time ago. And the other one's like, what are you talking about? Where did this come from? Like, it's completely out of left field. And the other one's like, are you kidding me? Have you not seen like how unhappy we are?
Yeah. I read a statistic recently that said that when men are ready to leave, it's a relatively short thing. Something that they decide last month and this month they're gone.
Yes.
Whereas women, by the time they say they're ready to leave, they've been actually thinking about it for 2 years.
The majority of my files have been the women who wanted to leave and have just been waiting for the right time. And what's interesting about that, though, when they come to this process or wanting to separate, then I would work with the partner or the spouse who is shocked by this.
Yes,
trying to
shocked
get
and
them up to
terrified.
speed, trying to help them process what's going on, because the other partners had time to process this, right?
Exactly.
And so that's where the collaborative and the team is so amazing, because you get this amazing level of support, even from your lawyers. And the thing is, although Sonja's saying her job is to support her own client, when two lawyers that are collaboratively trained come together, there's so much creativity. So much creativity, and they work together to try to come up with a resolution for the client. So the energy is so much more positive and dignified, and it's just, I can't say enough good things about the process. I wish I had gone through that process. I went through, unfortunately, the more difficult litigation, 5 years of it, which is why I do the work that I do. I don't want other children to have to go through, what my kids did. So it's such a wonderful process because you have that ongoing support from everybody.
Okay, so just to recap, our team is 2 lawyers, a counselor, and a financial advisor of sorts. And there are people with financial designations as divorce.
Yes, they all have to be trained in collaborative practice. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a little break now. When we come back, we'll be dealing more with this collaborative process as we collaborate here on Fresh Waves at Whistle FM. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.